And open to anybody, township residents first.
I'm trying to research how the wind turbines will impact our lives and the lives of my friends I have developed over 42 years of living in our township. Do I sell the house now, not knowing how close the ordinance will allow DTE to install the turbines? I have recently researched homes for sale in Pigeon and Elkton, which are two small communities approximately the size of Bronson. And those are two cities or little towns in the area that DTE has their wind park. In that area, Trulia, which is a real estate sales type company, has an explanation for the decline of sales in that area. And quote, they said, last year average home listing prices decreased 5.2%, perhaps reflecting waning popularity of the local area. Some homes have been on the market for over a year. Some have been taken off the market and placed back on the market the next year, and they still haven't been sold. And they are listing them at 60% what they listed them at the year prior. I don't wish to lose even 20% of my home value. That would be better than 40%, however, or 100%, or maybe not even be able to sell at all, especially if we have the turbines within. Or maybe not be able to sell at all. How much more could the turbines affect our health? I don't know. How much more could it affect the quality of life? I would like to say a great deal. Not being able to see the sunset or sunrise without wind turbines blades turning in front of the sun or the moon, or watching the birds fly through the turbines and kill themselves after I've spent 42 years of feeding them year round. Am I selfish? I have looked at the statistics for Laker School, which is the school that services the children that go to school in the area of these wind turbines by DTE. Their schools, the children are 11% less proficient in math and 3% less proficient in reading. And statistics show that the children at the Laker School are not pleased with the changes. You can see what they say, that it looks more like an apartment, the school that they go to. And the student-to-child ratio is the same as ours, and their teachers get paid $2,500 less a year on average. So I'm just asking you that though DTE is touting they have given to Huron County schools, I don't know where it's at. And I appreciate that you would consider our welfare.
Hi, I'm Isaac Tappenden. I am going to be a senior this year at Bronson High School, and I'm involved in FFA over at the Career Center. I don't really know much about these turbines. All I know is that, or I don't know whether they're good or bad. I'm trusting you guys to make the decision. I just want you to know that when you make the decision, make sure you keep in mind that in the future, our generation is going to have to deal with these too. So just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tara. That's my son. I want to talk about two things tonight: property values and good neighbors. When I say property values, I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about finances. I'm talking about how much I value my property. How much my family loves our old farmhouse and our 40 acres. We are country people through and through. My kids love being outside. We love walking down our lane and through our woods. We love sitting on our front porch, hearing the night noises. We love garden. We love having rooms for our pigs and our chickens. Our property is not just a plot of ground. It is our home. It is the only home my children have ever lived in. It is the home I want to grow old in. This issue does not affect some huge cornfield in the middle of nowhere. This will directly affect my home, my property. I place a very high value on my property, and I'm not talking about money. I think you know what I'm talking about. I care about what happens around it. So when I heard about the possibility of having a 500-foot turbine right across the road from my house, literally out my kitchen window is where they want to put them, it got my attention. My husband and I attended the last meeting to get more information. I went with an open mind and a lot of questions. I am not against wind energy. I am not against green energy. I want to take care of not only my land, but our land, the earth. You know, God has given this to us, and it's our responsibility to be good stewards of it. But I came away from the meeting feeling very uneasy. I am by nature a very trusting person. Those of you that know me know that. But I left that night with a great distrust of DTE. When I went to the easels in the portion where you were to mingle and ask questions, several of my questions were answered with, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. Let's ask the main guy. Like, they didn't even know how to answer my easy questions. And in fact, when I asked one woman, how loud are these things really? Like, what does it sound like when you're next to a turbine? She told me she had never heard one herself. This woman that was there to convince me and tell me why turbines are okay had never herself heard a turbine or stood next to one. Distrust. DTE says that turbines make good neighbors, that agricultural land and wind parks work well together, but I'm not sure that I trust that statement either. I am very familiar with what makes a good neighbor because I have a lot of them. Good neighbors look out for each other. I have this turkey that likes to sit in the middle of my road. I'm not quite sure why, but I also have a really good neighbor that when she sees that my turkey is in the road, she stops her car and she gets out and she shoos my turkey to safety. She is a good neighbor. In the winter, when the snow gets really deep and my husband and sons are out shoveling the driveway, my neighbor Joe down the road comes with his plow and plows us out because he is a good neighbor. In fact, we have a lot of good neighbors in this township, neighbors that we can trust and that value the same things we value. DTE says that turbines make good neighbors, but time after time during that meeting, facts were presented that showed otherwise. At least twice, I specifically remember the DTE representative had to take back his words after truth was presented, and he was forced to admit that he had not given the complete truth. I do not trust that DTE will tell us the complete truth. I cannot understand how these turbines, is my time? Okay, I just can't understand how those two work well together. How can putting all that concrete in the ground really be good for our farmland? Thank you guys for letting us have a chance to talk. I really respect that, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
My name is Ron Betts. I'm well acquainted with most of the people out there. I have respect for them, but I had to get up here and have this young man down here said, we hope you make the right decision for us. Michigan Constitution preambles, all power comes from the people. We should get a vote. Now, what I didn't understand about this, I thought you were to be the planning commission would tell us what you decided on setbacks and things of that nature. Or hasn't that been decided yet? I see. Yeah. Well, I think the setbacks won't matter if we do like the other townships in Michigan and just simply vote on it. And there won't be a problem. So they won't set foot in it. So, yeah, don't give up your rights to get up and speak, and these people will be respected, but they're working for you. And I worked a long time for mine. I started mowing lawns when I was in the 2nd grade, and, you know, carrying boards for my dad. He was a carpenter for $2 a day, and I've been working ever since. And I don't mind it a bit, but, and if you lose a little bit, I have before, but that's not such a big deal. Is I want to be able to sleep at night. I want my neighbors to have a pleasant life, and that's kind of why we moved out in there. And just leave one another alone as long as you're not hurting the other guy. But these things, just you probably already know. Keep in mind, I've heard that possibly 8 or 10 years is what these wind turbines are good for, and then who forces these people to come and take them out? I think they need to lay down enough money going in that if they encroach on somebody's property with their flicker, they get an instant $500,000 right there. Just one turn of the doggone blade. If they don't take the turbines down, well, they already got $10 million apiece invested in. We can take them down and just put teeth in it. Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. Brian Reed, Lindley Road, west side of the township, and I am a concerned citizen of Madison Township. Two quick topics that I want to address tonight are noise, and I know we've already talked a little bit about noise and the nighttime lights. I'm not going to go into specifics because of our previous meetings. We have the data, we have all the information on that. just some thoughts here. First, noise. Living in an agricultural belt, we are accustomed to the noise of tractors, farm machinery, engines to run the irrigation systems, and trucks going up and down our road. We knew we would hear these kinds of sounds when we purchased our property 7 years ago. We enjoy watching the farmers work their fields and learn more about farming through sights and sounds and watching them and the machinery out in the field, and a couple of our neighbors driving past our house a couple times a week. But these sounds are cyclic, and they're not every day. More specifically, these sounds occur mostly during planting and harvesting seasons, when they're out doing the fertilizer, which they just did in the field south of us recently, and during long durations of limited rainfall, something that we don't know anything about that at this time, because the irrigations haven't even been turned on yet. But the bottom line is, a wind turbine is industrial and not agricultural. A turbine's operation is not based on planting, harvesting, rain, because it's an industry. We installed a standby generator at our home when we put our addition on. When that generator kicks on, it's loud. We can hear it in the basement, but it's temporary. It cycles on when the power goes off, and it cycles off when it comes back on again. And it runs once a week for 8 minutes. It isn't always running. Can the same be said for a wind turbine? Can we turn that on, turn it off? We can't. I am concerned the environment and our rural, daily, and nightly ambient noises will change permanently with wind turbines in our township. There is plenty of data on adverse health effects, but I would rather not have Madison Township residents provide future data to these effects. The nighttime lights, it's not just a single light at the top of the nacelle. There's multiple lights up and down the tower. Last August of 2016, I moved my daughter from Seattle to Kalamazoo, Michigan, and we drove 90 all the way across. And we stopped just south of Rochester, Minnesota on day 3. And as we were coming in to that area, we see all these red lights all over the place, from the ground all the way up to an altitude that I don't know what it was. These lights will be... 1 minute. These lights will be on from dusk to dawn. They're not turned off. It'd be a FAA hazard. So what if I want to take my granddaughter out someday and show her the farmland and everything around us, or the ISS flyover, a full moon, anything like that? We're going to see lights, we're going to hear sounds. She's going to say, "What is that, Grandpa? What's that sound, Grandpa? Why is it noisy here?" Bottom line, distance is the only practical means to alleviate and mitigate noise and achieve acceptable sound levels. The township zoning law should protect all residents, the collective whole. I support the 2016 MSU CNE recommendation of 1.25 miles minimum setback, property line to turbine.
That's your 3 minutes.
Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Jones, and I'm a Madison Township resident. I'd like to know why our board decided to meet with DTE behind our back, and we were not welcome. Not only were we not told about it, once we found out about it, we were told we couldn't go to the meeting. Once the newspapers and the TV stations were told about it, you guys went ahead and stopped going to the meeting. And the second part of my question is, are you going to go ahead and have another closed-door meeting that we cannot attend?
That meeting, DTE canceled that meeting. It wasn't anything the township did about going or not going. That meeting, the Open Meetings Act does not apply to that type of meeting at all. We actually went to the Michigan Township Association and had their legal staff verify that to us before we announced whether we would or wouldn't go to the meeting.
It's still shady.
Good evening, my name is Pam Reed, and I'm a concerned citizen of Madison Township and of Branch County. We have talked to a lot of people about turbines. Even folks who say they don't want turbines say sometimes, with a slight hesitancy, "Pam, I don't want to really try and tell somebody what they can and can't do with their land." But that is exactly the point. If DTE were allowed to do this the way that they wanted to do it, they would be telling us what we could do with our land and what we can't. DTE thinks that setbacks of less than 1,000 feet are acceptable. that ignores a 1,500 feet no-build zone that is explicitly stated in their contract. It ignores the manufacturer's evacuation zone, which if you could find a manual, that would be great, because I've asked, I can't find one. What it means, though, is that it means that my land as a non-participant has just been forfeited to DTE. That no-build area and no evacuation zone are now on our property. That is uncompensated easement, that is trespassing, that's a land grab. At-will reps in the field have told people they need taller turbines, 600 feet, to go up and catch the better wind. DTE's response to that is, we've never put that size in before, which at first sounds a little promising. DTE's attorney and site manager said to me that he would clarify the height of the turbines, try and put something in writing, because I said it would go a long way with me. That was several weeks ago. I haven't seen anything. DTE exec in the Hometown Gazette said larger output turbines will likely be used for future projects. So here's the reality. The projects that were just proposed in Shiawassee County this year were 600 feet tall. Those local officials, through their zoning, said, no thank you. North of Kokomo, Indiana, the proposed turbines there are 600 feet tall. So when I get different renditions of the height from DTE, it makes me wonder. First, DTE said they wanted a dozen turbines in Madison Township. Then the number jumped to 40, and now it is 60. Why would I trust a salesperson who keeps reporting a different agenda? DTE calls this proposed project soft. Is that soft 1, 2, 3, or 4? I would really like to know, because they have not only leased land in Branch County, they have in Calhoun and St. Joseph as well. Thankfully, private contracts do not trump zoning. But that's not what the DTE rep tells people. They say, hey, these turbines are coming. You're going to look at them, you might as well take the money. That is a lie. Yet it is still being repeated, despite the exec who told me at the last meeting last month, that's not how we do business, Pam, that's not DTE. It's still being repeated. When all you have are half-truths, you send the subcontractors out to do your dirty work. We as residents need zoning to protect us as non-participants from this attempted land grab and these uncompensated easements. Thank you very much for your time.
Gentlemen, my name is Michael Koch. I live on the southwest side of Madison Lake. I've lived there for 22 years. I love living there. It's a very beautiful place. I keep my property up meticulously, as a couple of my neighbors who are here today can attest to. Living here for 22 years, I was raised in New York City. The reason I left New York City was because once I was outside of New York and saw the beautiful countryside, like Madison Township, I fell in love with it. And I knew that at that point that I would no longer want to live in the city. So here I am living here in this beautiful township. What I ask of you gentlemen tonight is to please keep it beautiful. Thank you.
Hello, gentlemen. Randy Nowak, live on the east side. You've noticed at a lot of these meetings, there's a common thread running through everybody's concerns. One of the major ones is, the more people learn about these wind turbines, the less they like about them. That's a common thread. There's a lot of lies and distortions out there. It's coming from, I won't say who, but this is all very easily provable stuff. Research tells the truth. I'd like to read an analogy that we found online that probably best describes what's going on here. It pertains to this, to today. I'm probably going to go over a little bit, so I'll use my wife's time. But let's say Donald Trump hired DTE to convince you to allow them to build 60 Trump towers in our township. They're all 600 feet tall with Jumbotron video screens on all four sides. Playing videos of industrial turbines all day long with synchronized flashing lights and sounds to mimic the exact sounds of the turbines. Would the same rules apply to those 60 Trump towers that we're thinking of applying to these turbines? Donald wants to write these off for much of his income, and the contracts he wants you to sign
He can sell them to anyone at any time, foreign investors included. But hey, don't worry, those are only 40-year contracts, 20-year extensions at Trump's discretion. And much of the contracts say at the sole discretion of the Donald. Would this township seriously consider Trump's proposal to turn our primarily agriculturally zoned township, where residents expect to be surrounded by corn, soybeans, and chickens, into an industrial city with 60 skyscrapers? Do you think the residents of Madison Township would be okay with 60 skyscrapers right on top of where they live, which is what we're looking at? Would it help if Trump enticed you with promises of big revenue and kickbacks for less than 10% of all the residents living in Madison Township? Less than 10% of the people will get anything from this. But hey, don't worry. Donald promises this will not lower the value of your home. Just trust him. Okay, obviously no one who is considering moving to Madison Township would think twice if there were dozens and dozens of Trump towers in their backyard. Would anyone care if there were 600 feet tall, buzzing, blinking, rotating skyscrapers all around them? But hey, don't worry, Donald will throw less than $3 a day over a 25-year contract to the little people to be good neighbor agreement to keep them quiet from complaining. This is what you folks are facing. This is the decisions you guys got to make. And please let me reiterate what the young man tried to tell you. You're making a decision for the future generations, for our kids, grandkids. Another question I would have for you, for any of you, to be honest with yourselves. Do you know a corporation, anywhere, at any time, could you think of off the top of your head, a corporation that ever came back in 30 years and cleaned up their mess? They say they will put money into an account. What will that be in 30 years? It will be, we will become a giant junkyard. They will not come back and clean up their mess. The taxpayers always do. And what will the regulations be in 30 years? What will it take to clean up that mess? We ask you folks, please, please, this is for everybody in this township, and you folks are elected because people trusted you. Think very hard before you make decisions. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Pamela Trams, and I live on Waddles Road. I think everyone knows Madison County isn't the richest county out there. You know, we may not all have tons of money or beautiful houses, but damn, when you come home on a nice summer's night and the stars are twinkling and you can see the crops and the breeze and the fireflies are out, we are rich. It is beautiful here. I've lived in New York, I've lived in London, and guess where I live now and where I only want to live? Is in my home on Waddles Road with my husband and see my beautiful yard. But with monoliths that are 500 feet tall, for reference, McCamley is 16 stories. A story is roughly 10 feet. You're looking at a 50-foot or 50-story building. Again, McCamley and Meadow Creek is 16 floors. These are 50 floors tall. I mean, that's ugly. They're not pretty to look at. I may be selfish because I love where I live, and I love the beauty of where we live, and I also think about all of the ways they're going to destroy the land by tearing down trees and by just coming in with their big trucks and going over our roads and ruining those. So I think it's going to ruin the town we live in and the area we live in. And also, how could a few farmers who decided to sell out decide for the whole community? A handful of people got money for this, but yet it's the whole community that's affected. So, you know, good for them, they got their $6,000, but what are the rest of us going to get?
Dave Trams, live on Waddles Road. I guess my wife said about almost everything I wanted to say, but why do a select few? Why do a select few of more of the richer people around here get to decide what I look at out my front window? And like my wife said, everybody around us sold out, and we're pretty much in the center of the eye of a hurricane. I mean, I'm gonna have 30 of this stuff just all around me. And just because the guy in front of me, behind me, left and right of me has more money than I do, why does he get to decide what I look at? Thanks.
I'm Patty Miller from the west side of Madison Township. And I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for all the time and thought that you have and will invest in this issue. My husband Kevin and I have served on several local boards over the past 40 years, and we appreciate that you have some tough decisions and you make them. As property owners, we were approached by DTE representatives over a year ago. The lease they offered included a per acre payment for each year of the evaluation phase of the project and an annual payment for each turbine placed on our property. The offer was substantial enough to be very tempting. However, as we looked over the agreement, we had too many questions to feel comfortable signing it. For instance, DTE states in the lease that the landowner will have the right to advise them of their preferences, but the location of all such facilities shall be determined on DTE's sole discretion. Some of these include foundations, concrete pads and footings, anchors, fences, markers, buildings for maintenance of wind units, buildings for storage, electrical transformers and energy storage facilities, electrical distribution and transmission towers, overhead and underground electric transmission collection, distribution, and communication lines. Also listed are temporary or permanent roads on, over, and across the easement area. So our first question was, would our farmland ever really be the same after this project? Regarding a lease, did we really want to pass over that much control of our property to a billion-dollar company for decades to come, certainly past our lifetimes? And what if the turbines and easements are sold by DTE to another company and another? Yet other early questions. Why on earth would DTE locate an industrial wind turbine project here in Branch County? Is the wind, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. Is the wind here really that impressive? A DTE rep has been quoted as stating that since the wind is not ideal, the turbines may need to be built taller to be effective. We remembered the turbines we had seen in other parts of the Midwest and thought, what about our home and our non-farming neighbors' homes? There are not a lot of expansive areas of farmland in Madison Township. Just how close might these huge structures be to us and those around us? The questions don't end with those, but you get the idea. My husband has invested, I will cry, his blood, sweat, tears, and countless sleepless nights into our farm and our land. I knew I wouldn't. We have many dear friends and neighbors who have done the same, and many of those same friends have signed agreements with DTE. And we fully acknowledge their right to do so. I apologize if any of these comments have offended them because that is not my intent. We have heard over and over that proposed wind turbine developments are destructive and divisive to communities. That's the last thing we want here. So, I'm almost done. We are asking you, the Planning Commission, to create a wind turbine ordinance that will take into consideration all residents of Madison Township, and we ask our township board to adopt an appropriate ordinance. This must include setbacks from property lines, adequate to protect non-lessees from sound disturbances and shadow flicker at a minimum. Additionally, we ask that you strongly consider the impact that too close siting of turbines will have on property values of unleased property. Thanks, guys.
Hi, I'm Vicki Hilborg, and I live on the east side of Madison Township. My husband Eric and I have been residents of Madison Township for 40 years. We have said no to DTE. We own 160 acres on Fairwood Road where our home is, and have spent the last 20 years of our lives developing that land into beautiful wildlife habitat. Our goal has always been to increase our pheasant population, and we have been successful in doing that. We have planted our agricultural fields to grasslands to provide nesting and rearing cover for broods of young pheasants, turkeys, woodcocks, and a variety of other wildlife that use the same kind of habitat that pheasants use. We have dug ponds to provide water. We plant nut-bearing trees and fruit-bearing shrubs annually to thicken and create fence rows to provide cover in the wintertime. We have been good stewards of the land that God has so graciously blessed us with and given us charge over. We want to leave a positive land legacy for the next generation that follows us. All of our upland and waterland birds that are in our property fly into the surrounding fields that are adjacent to our property. Our acreage is surrounded by open agricultural ground, and we are asking the planning board to create zoning that would set back a wind turbine from our property line at least 1.25 miles or more to prevent shadow flicker, which can make an upland bird think that a predator hawk or eagle is overhead. It can also decrease the noise levels that could impact wildlife behavior changes that might occur, possibly from these wind turbines. That might affect the way they move through our property, the way they nest, and the actual rearing of their young. Since the blades will possibly only have a 20-foot clearance from the ground, the further setback will also prevent deadly encounters for those birds who take off in flight too close to the wind turbines, if located too close to our property lines. Pheasants and turkeys don't fly too far, but they do fly above 20 feet. Thank you for your job that you are doing to protect the health, safety, and welfare of all residents of Madison Township, including its wildlife population. My husband and I appreciate the time and energy you are all taking to consider all aspects of these zoning ordinances. We all just need to realize why we love our community. We need to protect the aesthetic value of our land because that is the reason we settled in this township to begin with. We don't want to see the nature of our community change by allowing industry to develop our agricultural and rural land into an industrial park project. Thank you very much for your time.
Hi, I'm Kathy Bohutch, and I live on the east side of Madison Township. Shadow flicker. I believe to the wind companies, this is just a suck-it-up issue. But to a person who suffers from a debilitating brain injury, PTSD, light sensitivity, migraines, autism, stress and annoyance issues, etc., shadow flicker intrudes on their safe space. I have people right in my neighborhood who will be impacted by this. DTE says they can control this. What happens if the software fails or it becomes outdated? The turbines are most likely here forever. And who might own these leases as time passes? Our home will be invaded every sunny morning by the intrusive flicker as the sun rises. Our 8-foot window has always allowed us to enjoy the beauty of the landscape and wildlife. We have several other areas in our home which will also be affected. Where do we escape to? Why should this be taken away from us? Our family has lived here for 90 years, so obviously this community means something to us. Day weighing at a range of 7 to 16 tons can be thrown 2,296 feet and an extreme speed as far as 6,561 feet. A mile is 5,280 feet. That reaches most of our homes easily if a turbine fails. Megawatt turbines like those proposed by DTE show significantly higher failure rate. If these failures are rare, like DTE claims, then why have there been over 40 documented failures since leases were first signed in Madison Township, March 2017? Our township officials need to support zoning that keeps us safe from increased risk. Heaven forbid one of our neighbors be the first documented case of a fatality from blade or ice throw. And I don't want to be that person either, or children playing in the yard. What if a turbine should catch fire with its oil, grease, and coolants? Are the dry crop fields going to catch on fire? If so, could our neighborhoods be threatened? What if a turbine explodes or leaks? What's the environmental impact? Is our fire department trained or even have the equipment to handle a turbine fire? I need to just finish this. I'm going to take some of Gary's, okay? I'm going to take some of Gary's. This is important. Our safety should be valued more than money, and I hope everyone has good insurance to cover any losses if this should come to be. I ask, who's responsible? It's shameful that hard-earned taxpayer dollars is wasted in trying to put these in areas such as ours that have low wind value to offer, and not investing more in reliable energy sources. This angers me, and taking the land that produces the food. There are places for these, not among our homes. I am not anti-wind, I am a concerned citizen, and I am asking for protection. I'm certain DTE does not have our best interest at heart, and our community will forever be changed. Thank you.
My name is Richard Easterday. I live with my wife at 284 Butts Road in Madison Township. My wife and I are lifelong farmers in the area, either in Branch County or just across the line in Poland Township, but we own ground in both townships. Our generations past have done nothing but farm that I can recollect. So you can see with the ground that we have and we love, we have a lot invested in it. Now, as landowners that have already signed leases, I may feel sorry for you. As those who are contemplating it, I want you to think about something. I own ground that has to be crop dusted occasionally. If we have these towers put in place, it's going to be a great interference with crop dusting if they can do it at all. Okay? I want you to think about this because in the state of Pennsylvania, where there was a tower, a crop duster hit it. Okay? Now, the crop duster's family sued, went to court. What do you think they got a judgment from?
Farmer.
The landowner, that's right. You as a landowner will be the one who will be liable. Not DTE in our instance, not the board or planning commission for recommending allowance of them, but the landowner. I don't know about you, but in this instance where they hit this tower in Pennsylvania, it cost the landowner $6 million. Could you afford that here? You better talk to your insurance man if they've let this happen. Thank you.
My name is Gary Bohach, lifelong resident of Madison Lake. As a kid, I grew up on the lake, swimming and fishing, so I'm aiming this mainly for the residents of Madison Lake and the people that care about Madison Lake. Madison Lake is not Torch or Higgins or Charlevoix, but it's our lake. We need to protect it. Many of you don't know, but back in the 80s, we had a proposed mobile home park going in on Babcock Road between 86 and my house. 50 units on 3 acres. Township board hastily looked over the plans, okayed it, but they had to turn it over to the state. The state came in, Madison Lake was already having problems with weeds and such. State came in, did a hydrological study, determined where the water was flowing, the contamination would end up in Madison Lake. The state turned it down flat. So that, fast forward 30, 35 years. DTE wants to put turbines in on what is known as the Little Swan watershed. Little Swan watershed feeds Madison Lake from the north side. One fork goes all the way to Sherwood Township. Another fork goes over to the northeast, crosses Arbogast Road in Batavia Township. The third to the southeast crosses 86, Parham Road and 86. So, we need to protect the lake from pollution from the turbines. Turbines produce energy, but they also leak oil when they burn, they leak oil when they tip over, and they leak oil just standing there. So the only guarantee I see with turbines is somewhere down the road, they are going to leak oil. With the Little Swan watershed, it's very hilly, and so picture a rain storm, snowstorm like we had last February with major runoff. All this pollution, if there's on the ground, is going to end up in Madison Lake. DTE might tell you they are good stewards of the land, but what about the people in Calhoun County along the Kalamazoo River? I'm sure Enbridge told them they were good stewards of the land. And how many thousand gallons leaked out before Enbridge even admitted it? They had a leak. So now we have these turbines on hilly ground in the Little Swan watershed. Who's going to check on these? The farmers that own this land don't even live in Madison Township. One family lives west of Colon, the other east of Coldwater. So there is no way they're going to be out in the middle of these fields in the middle of winter. So we leave this up to DTE. Can we trust DTE? I can't. They've already lied to us about how many turbines were going in. The lease is signed. We're almost done top secret. So my idea is to keep Madison Lake safe. There should be no turbines anywhere near the Little Swan watershed. We got to get this right. We can't screw it up. We don't get any mulligans on this. So thank you for your time and attention. Protect Madison Lake.
Hi, my name's Darlene Hagel. Thanks for your time. You guys know I love living here. Everybody knows that. Okay, what I want to bring to attention is the accidents that are happening up in the Thumb and all the way across the middle of Michigan. There's lightning strikes, blade breaks, there's problems with the adhesive that's causing blade throw, there's fires, and the fire department stands there saying, we can't do anything unless it burns itself out or falls to the ground. We can't touch it. So those things concern me. The responsibility for damages will go to the farmer. It's the owner of the property and not the renter. So as long as you guys know that. When they come in, people talk a lot about health issues. There's a condition, it's called turbine syndrome. DTE keeps saying it doesn't exist. Insurance companies are paying for it. So if the insurance companies are paying, which they don't pay for anything, you know, if they're paying for it, there has to be something there. Is DTE going to step in and pay the deductibles for those people that are sick with something that doesn't exist? When you sell your turbines, are you guys going to come back in and take them down? Are you going to monitor that? Because the agreement is with DTE. It's not with whoever you sell it to. Are you going to come back in and dismantle that? So those are just questions that I have. You know, everybody knows this is a beautiful area. We moved it here from across the state. We live just south of the Thumb. Okay, farmers over there say, no, we don't want any more. There's been lawsuits, the people are winning. There's been noise ordinance lawsuits and people are winning. But you're going on for 6 months, 8 months with this loud noise. And it's for the decibel. People can't sleep, they're having to move into their basements. So as far as it being a joyous thing, those counties are voting it down. After they okayed it, they came back and wanted more, they're voting it down. They're saying no more. There has to be a reason. So thank you for your time.
Good evening, I'm Tricia Cantor. I live out at the lake. I'm sure that when you accepted your position of leadership, you did not imagine that you would find yourself addressing an issue of this magnitude, an issue which could potentially change not just the visual beauty and landscape of the area, but the actual health and well-being of the inhabitants and the wildlife. As you know, your duty is to the residents of the Madison Township. But let me remind you that your zoning will not just affect the residents of today, but those of tomorrow as well. At the Madison Lake Access meeting on June 16th, held by DTE, one of the DTE representatives posed to me the question, why should there be noise setbacks to vacant land and farmland of a non-participating landowner? And honestly, to me, that answer is quite simple. Future use. Your zoning will decide if that currently vacant property will ever become the location of a family home. As a riparian landowner, I have prohibited uses and land use requirements set out by zoning. My property and how I use it is determined through zoning. So, in recent zoning Article 7, R2 Waterfront Residential District outlined that I have height regulations of 35 foot, 45-degree lake view setback, Regulations to even to make sure that accessory uses do not constitute, create, or increase nuisance. Regulations so as to not disrupt or impair the view of the lake for my neighbor. Restrictions so as to not encroach on my neighbor, another fellow Madison Township resident, their use of their land. So if setbacks are not from property lines, you diminish the potential of the future of that land. When I first heard about the proposed industrial wind turbine project, my concerns were how would this affect my community and how would it affect my family? I have 2 little girls. How would this affect them? I too have health, safety, and welfare as duties, but I have them to my family. And although there are multiple studies examining the harmful effects of low-frequency sound on both the mental and physical well-being of a person, I would like to draw your attention to one study by the World Health Organization. It's World Health Organization Guidelines for Community Noise, Section 3, Adverse Health Effects of Noise, subsection 3.8, paragraph 3. And it reads, the evidence on low-frequency noise is sufficiently strong to warrant immediate concern. And it goes on to say, low-frequency noise may also produce vibrations and rattles as secondary effects. Health effects due to low-frequency components in noise are estimated to be more severe than for community noises in general. Now, since A weighting underestimates the sound pressure levels of noise with low-frequency components, a better assessment of health effects would be to use a C weighting. Now, I didn't know what that meant, so I looked it up. Let me explain. Your common decibel rating is dBA, which is an A weighting. The difference between an A weighting and a C weighting for decibels is that A weighting cuts off the lower and higher frequencies, whereas C weighting takes the inaudible frequencies into account. Those inaudible frequencies could potentially do damage to your health and well-being. As in many cases, what we don't know can hurt us, and with low-frequency sound, what we can't hear can hurt us. So let's not be mistaken or misled. Potential negative health effects are real.
I just feel that it's important to reiterate what Patty Miller said, because I look around and I've got 62 years, all but 5, the first 5 on Farron Road. So I see friends, neighbors here. DTE approached me also. I turned them down. But I just that we make sure, like Patty said, we're not here to divide this community. I'm one of the members of the Concerned Citizens of Madison Township. That is not our intention. Our intention is to inform people so they can make educated, informed decisions. That's all we want. We are not here to divide. We do not want to create hate and discontent. Please. Thank you.
I promised not to come up here. But I'm gonna. For one, every point was valid. I don't know, we was talking, it was about 2001, 2002, Madison Township put in zoning. I was the fall guy. I went to the township board and says, we need zoning. Everybody come in and says, we don't want zoning, we want to stay the way we are, leave us alone. If we wouldn't have did what we did back then, it would all been different. We'd have been arguing about other things right now. And at the same time, before zoning was ever adopted, I signed a lease. I'm a farmer. I took a lease on a cell tower. You know what? The cell tower got stopped at 200 feet with no zoning. You know why? Federal Aviation Association, federal government, world government with airlines. Every airport's got a no-fly zone. And it comes like an angle out. Their first line in sand is at 4 miles. My tower is at 6.75 miles. and it was still at 200 feet. Everybody's got an iPhone. Put an app on with your elevation, drive around, see where your elevations are, do the math, we're safe. Now, let's switch to farmer. I want to put in 1,000 cows and milk them. No, I'm going to put in 10,000 hogs. Okay? Well, thank goodness our zoning way back put in a light egg and a heavy egg. There will never be a large concentration of livestock north of Madison Lake on the watershed coming in. It's in the zoning. There's a light egg, a heavy egg. Drive up Babcock Road all the way to Union Township. They can't build a tower except at the very, very north end. Okay, they might build a tower. State of Michigan is under law by 2030, 50% of all the energy we use to charge our phones and computers has got to be green energy. Don't know where that green's coming from. Wind, solar. There's signs been up for ever since, I'm not going to say my age, a long time. It says close down Palisades. We don't have any coal here. So there's wind and there's solar. But our zoning protects us. But there's a silent partner that's got the final trump card, which is federal aviation. And let me tell you guys, don't spend none of our township money changing what we worked so hard for from 2002. Kevin, how much time I got left? Now, the next thing is, I'm not going to point out any names. We are not going to bring up Republican or Democrat. But 10 years ago, I don't know who was in administration, but they developed a thing where we got to spend billions of our money to explore green energy. Spending it.
Thank you.
Hi. Thanks for having this meeting. And my name is Catherine Barnes, and I've been here since 1973 in Madison Township. I have 15 acres. When I first moved there, it was basically farmed, but it basically was really a wetland, and the tractors were always getting stuck, and there was always problems. So I decided the best thing to do was not to have it farmed, and I have organic gardens and wildlife refuge. And the DTE itself has said that the wind turbines are the hardest on the wildlife. And we have so much, we're just blessed with wildlife in Madison Township. It's biodiverse, which wetlands are. Madison Township is basically wetlands. And just today, walking out in my yard, I almost stepped on a little fawn. Last night I heard owls. I'm waiting for the bats to come out over by the Wyants. Have you seen them yet?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, those turbines are really hard, not just on people with the noise and not letting us sleep at night, and people with heart conditions, stress levels, etc. But it's really hard on wildlife. They can't take the turbulence and the sound, so they either die or they evacuate. There's just all kinds of things that people don't even think about, like songbirds that nest. They don't come to an area where there are wind turbines anymore. Little animals that have signals for danger that helps them survive. They can't do that anymore because the turbines are noisy and they can't hear each other. So whole populations of wildlife get decimated. I asked DTE, why aren't you working with our local conservation office and our local naturalists, people that know about the birds, the migratory patterns, etc., that have lived here so long? Well, we've never done that. We'll get back to you. And the people they use, West, is a corporation that pursues wind development. They go to conferences, they promote wind energy. They're in DTE's pocket. They present a synopsis of a survey of the area, and I haven't seen them out looking for anything. Somebody said they were out looking for bats in the daytime. I don't know that they're that competent. They pretty much promise that they're going to
get the permit, you know, and bypass the wildlife. But that is a concern of mine, and especially also human health and welfare. And I think that the UK now has a 3-mile setback from residences. I do not think that is unreasonable, because you need that far setback so your property values don't drop. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lynn Felson. I work for DTE Energy. I don't work on renewables or wind projects. I work on an entirely different part of our business. So because I probably seem to you like I'm in the middle of this conflict, I want to tell you what I do know. What I know is that I value my property and my traditions here in Madison just like everybody else in this room. And what I know is, job or no job, there is nothing I would do to harm my own family. And what I also know is that DTE Energy operates with ethics and integrity. It always has. That is how we do business. And what I also know is that there is a lot of misinformation being fed to the people of this town. I've been in the rooms, I've heard it, I've seen it. Information that is misinterpreted or taken entirely out of context. In my opinion, what this boils down to are scare tactics. And truly nothing can stop progress more than fear. I think we all can agree on that.
No.
So what I would like to ask from everybody here today is to continue to educate yourself on the facts. The facts in their intended context. So when you're in these meetings hearing about all the scary things related to wind turbines, request copies of the presentations. Record the presentations. Because when you're in these rooms, and I have been in these rooms, a lot of information is being thrown out. That way, you are empowered to go back and fact check on your own and see what is verifiable and what is not. Secondly, I would strongly encourage everybody here to visit a wind park and see how wind energy can coexist with farming communities. If there's enough interest, I will put it upon myself to make sure that DTE offers transportation to go visit and see and hear for it yourself. Hopefully, in the end, we can all come to a sensible conclusion that is not based on fear. Because I don't think anybody here wants a community that is negative and divided. I also don't think any of us want to overlook all the good that can come out of an opportunity like this. Because at the end of the day, an investment will be made somewhere. And as somebody who is vested in Madison Township and sees firsthand the good that DTE does for the communities it serves, I would hope that we could consider it to come here. Thank you for your time.
Go there.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Proctor. I live in Sherwood Township. And I came tonight because I wanted to say I share a lot of the same concerns as folks here in Madison Township about this industrial wind farm that they're trying to develop in Branch County. And it's my hope that by coming to these meetings, expressing our concerns, that our township planning commissions and township boards will create and adopt meaningful zoning to protect the health, safety, and welfare of all our citizens. Thank you.
My name's Carrie Gallup, and I'm a Sherwood Township resident. I'm one of those people that graduated from Union City High School and said, I am out of here and I am never coming home. And I made that for about 12 years, and I decided I was ready to raise a family, and I came home. I came so close to home that I share a property line with my father. And my father's family has lived on his land for over 100 years. Through all of life's ups and downs, all that's ever mattered to me is my peace and quiet that my family and I enjoy. So I'm not gonna lie, time's been tough. Time's been real tough, like it have been for a lot of the farmers in this area. And when the DTE rep called me, I had to put the phone down. I didn't want to hear the number. I was afraid to hear the number. And because of that, I'm not going to fault any one of my neighbors in this township, my township, or Union Township that had to make that hard choice. I'm going to remind you
as everybody has, that it's your responsibility to protect the health, safety, and welfare, but not just of the people that didn't sign a lease, like me, but the people that signed. Maya Angelou said, when somebody shows you who they are, to believe them the first time. And they lied to you. They lied when they said they were coming in to do research only. No corporation in the history of the world throws around money in an economically depressed rural area for nothing. So I would like my own township to follow your guys' lead with the moratorium. I believe that the domino effect is real in this particular instance. If one township falls, we're all going to fall. So thank you, and thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. My name is Gary Chester, and I'm from Union Township. First of all, I want to thank you very much for giving us time, the non-residents, to come in and talk. Whether it's Union Township, Sherwood Township, or Madison Township, we are all in this together. As you know, I don't have to tell you gentlemen on the board here that wind turbines will change the landscape of this community. It will change the viewscape of this community. It will change this rural community that we love forever. Forever. I've lived in Detroit. I've lived in Chicago. There's a reason we moved here. There's a reason all of these people live here in this rural community as you do, because it is a rural community. And those reasons is not to live under the shadow of an industrial turbine. These skyscrapers. It's hard to believe that all of us are facing this together. DTE does not provide power to us. DTE does not provide any power to any of us here in the counties. As I said, I live in Union Township, I live in Union Lake. Not only are we concerned about the quiet and the view, we're concerned about the waterfowl and the birds, and the eagles that live on Union Lake. As I said before, nobody wants to change the complexion of this community. There's a reason why we live here. DTE does not provide power to us. DTE, go back to Detroit. Thank you. Thank you for giving me
I'm Anna Kime. I live in Sherwood Township. And I actually grew up here, went to Union City before school, and work took me away from here for approximately 21 years. I came back to this area for a specific reason, that home is where the heart is. And after having lived in Chicago, our rural, untouched landscape felt pure, welcoming, and unspoiled. Together with my husband, we chose to invest in this community and call it home. We undertook a project of both moving and restoring a vacant farmhouse, one that always captivated me in my youth. It was and still is a labor of love. I found the quiet peacefulness of our community mesmerizing and have enjoyed reconnecting with the familiarity of both land and people. Our home overlooks Union Lake and our family farm beyond. I get to watch the eagles off our back porch, something that in only recent years that's been possible as they've made their comeback in this area. The very idea that their environment may be threatened makes my blood boil. Never in a million years, if you had asked me previously, had I ever thought about the remote possibility of taking in a panoramic view of turbines off both the front and back of my porches. That's exactly what is being proposed with land that has been leased all around me. What we face as a community now is troubling because for the very first time that I can ever recall, we are facing a topic so polarizing, divisive, and critical that to call it anything different would be foolish. It's a subject with outcomes I always equate to a story of our Hereford bull when our family had Herefords way back in the day. My parents came out to find the bull had broken through the fence. This massive, intolerable creature was missing, only to be found on top of one of our hay wagons. 1,800 pounds of him. On the wagon. I think a few maybe choice words were had. So the subject tonight of the elephant in the room, similar to that bull, is how do you get an 1,800-pound bull off a hay wagon? It could get ugly, maybe dangerous or scary, or as luck would have it, as gracefully as a ballerina dancing Swan Lake. The eyes were locked, and by golly, that bull leapt off that wagon with such grace and skill that for a moment time stood still. So like the bull, we can gracefully ask DTE to pack their bags and go home. We do this by adopting robust zoning ordinances and setbacks that would leave our health, safety, and welfare for all of us intact. For the township officials and planning commissions, I wouldn't wish this heavy burden you guys all carry on anyone. I'm grateful for all of you and entrust that you will protect us all. The landscape and environment of our community will forever and always be changed if these turbines are allowed to breach it. I found a quote, "Monsters exist, but they are too few in number to be truly dangerous. More dangerous are the common men, the functionaries ready to believe and to act without asking questions. So please don't take that lightly. The landscape that you and I have grown up amongst will forever and always be changed, and once done can never be undone." Thank you.
Jennifer Milligan. I live in Allegansett Township, but I'm a lifelong resident of Union City. Come from 5 generations of farmers, so this decision is not something against farmers versus non-farmers. It's a horrible dilemma that our citizens are facing. My husband and I live on a 150-year-old family farm that we chose to come back to, and it's not easy. We have a small farm, we raise animals, we work other jobs, and we love our life in Allegansett. I became aware of this 3 weeks ago when I attended a DTE meeting in Union City to just see what this was all about. And boy, I've had quite an education these last 3 weeks. Transparency is not DTE's strong suit. To reiterate what Gary Chester said is, why is DTE here? We do not buy our power from DTE. I pay my utility bill to consumers' power. I think there's a reason why they're here. I think they're taking advantage of a situation, and I don't believe that they have our best interests in mind. So I started doing some research. I went down to the Register of Deeds, and I started looking up the leases for DTE, and was shocked to find that they've been signed in March of 2017. How come I just learned about it 3 weeks ago? I read the newspaper, I teach school, I am out in the community, and I knew nothing about this. And I have jumped in with both feet. And I'm doing all that I can to educate people, because I believe when you hear the facts and see what the long-term ramifications are for this, it is not good. I have seen the lease that DTE gives to their farmers, in which they say that when the turbines are removed, that they will only remove the top 4 feet of the concrete and leave God knows how much underneath it. I know that they have said that it's anywhere between 40 and 43 semi-trucks full of cement. Who picks up that bill? I know enough about farming to know that crops can't grow with only 4 feet of soil. And a drought, corn and soybeans roots will go far beyond that. Who picks up the bill? No native grasses are going to be growing, no trees will grow, no crops will grow. And I know that if that were on my farm, I don't know as my husband and I would have the means in which to get the farmland back the way it should be. And I just think this is huge. I think that there's a reason why they're here. I don't think they're being transparent. I think they're promising the moon. And if you get your hands on a contract, read it over, because it's shocking to see what the real promises are there. I was at the Sherwood Township meeting where we asked Jeff from Atwell to put in writing what is the height going to be for these, and he said he would get us that. They've been upset that they say it's 500 feet. You know, put it in writing. Show us. Let us know what we're getting our into. In Union City, the tallest thing would be the water tower, 125 feet. So imagine taking 5 of those and stacking them on and spreading them throughout our county. It's scary. And I thank you for giving the opportunity for other folks from other townships to do this. You are to be commended. I hope other townships follow your lead. And I obviously hope that you make the decision to not have industrial turbines in your township, and that will set a precedent for the rest of them.
I'm Cheryl Ribstra from a very proud resident of Sherwood Township, and thank you very much for having zoning in your township, and I am proud to say that Sherwood does also. And that leads me back, and I was not going to really talk about this, but way back in the late 60s, my father was one of the county commissioners. He worked on zoning way back then. And guess what? The gentleman who said this before, the same thing happened. People were against it. My father was eventually recalled. Our family was threatened. We were threatened. We received death threats. Our house was shot at. So I know how ugly things can be. I want to say thank you again for having the zoning, and remember, your job is so important. I am surrounded by people who have signed the contract, and they're my friends. I value them. Whatever happens, they're going to be my friends. So other people have said we have no room for hate, and that is the truth. No room for hate. But again, you know, your job, and I really respect you guys, you know, for doing it, is to protect the residents. And I'm going to just end with just a quote from a documentary. Ask questions. Do your homework. Because once you let these guys in, your world is changed forever, and there's not a thing you're going to do about it. Thank you so much.
DTE is in the evaluation stage of a potential